Hello Braddock families. Today I'm going to do a little video about what this garden has gone through, some of the things I've done, choices I've made, uh, why, how, and a little bit about some of the plants as well. So I'm going to start with this center planter. You can see it's a little bit of an island unto itself, and this oak tree, while it's very large and has a lot of height and width to it, it's still struggling a little bit. You can see it's not the healthiest oak in the garden. And when I came into this garden, there wasn't this mulch and logs. It was flat and weedy, and there was the composite board boundary. So we took that composite board boundary out. It was in bad shape. It had been mowed over. It had risen with the roots, it was faded, it was broken, screws were exposed, all that sort of thing. So that was one of the first things that we did, was get that composite board out. Then I had this slate that was not exactly blank, it was covered in weeds. So you can actually look at the base of the oak tree. You can see all those slash marks. They've started to heal a little bit, but they're all the way around, and those are from the mower, because basically all the resources they had was to come through and mow it, and that was how they kind of kept the weeds in check. But obviously it was not good for the tree, and it just spreads weed seeds, and it just compounded the problem. So one of the first things I had to do was tackle the grass weeds, a lot of mustard and other kinds of weeds. So the mulch, and so first there was cardboard. I put cardboard down to suffocate some of the weeds, and then the mulch on top. So both of those combined help to suppress a lot of the weeds. So there's a lot of dead, dying grass underneath. Most of the weeds that we're getting now that I've been pulling up are from the seeds, because it was way too big of a project to get all of them out before they went to seed. So any of the seed that was on top, swept on top of the mulch, they've gone to seed, they've started growing, and fortunately they're a little easier to pull out because they don't have the massive root structure. But if we don't get them out, they will eventually redo that root structure, and we've got to start all over again. So the first thing I looked at was the weeds. How are we going to deal with the weeds? Then I looked at the health of the tree. So I'm going to show you one of the first things that I planted. I was trying to find a plant that would support the oak, and so I chose the toyon. This is the toyon right here, and he struggled for a little while. This soil's not great. There's a lot of unknowns underneath. I found cement. I'll show you over where I dug and found cement. But just in general, this area had bungalows. It's been definitely used and reused, so the soil is compacted and not healthy. And I didn't have the resources or the time to test, and truthfully, the best thing to repair native soil is native plants anyway. So I probably wouldn't have done a whole lot differently had I known exactly what was underneath. But anyway, I started with this toyon. This is the famous toyon that is rumored to have been the origin of the Hollywood, the berries that reminiscent of holly. So I planted that, and then I made the rock, because native plants need some rocks, and it provides a lot of different help for the native plants. So I made one rock. We were able to get some donations later, and maybe I'll make some more rocks eventually, but the logs have really helped to delineate the outer area, keep the mulch in. And so we only have one homemade rock here, but it served its purpose. It helped this little toyon get settled. It struggled for a while, and it really started taking off this last year. You can see it shot up pretty high. So we'll need a little bit of pruning in the summer to kind of get things where I want them. But this brittle bush, I think it helped it a lot, provided some support. You can see this one is doing really well. This one doesn't have its yellow flowers right now, but this is actually one of the largest brittle bush in this garden. This just loves this horrible conditions of this soil right here, and it just exploded. So some of the other plants that I have planted in here, I wanted to get some ground covers in here to suppress some of the weeds that are still coming up. So this is a prostrate sagebrush, and that's a they're not the healthiest. It's in the shade on top of the bad soil. They don't really mind the bad soil. It's more the shade that they're not crazy about. But they're spreading slowly, and they're doing their job. I needed something under here to support the oak and to cover the ground to suppress the weeds. Coffeeberry bush, and this is one of I love these because it really supports the wildlife in the garden. You can kind of see all the little holes in the leaves. The caterpillars love this, so I like to plant them near an oak tree so the caterpillars can eat the leaves and then climb up in the oak tree to become a butterfly or a moth. You can see it really supports the wildlife because then the birds come and eat the caterpillars. So this is a wonderful little bush. It'll probably grow a little slowly being in the shade as well, but it seems pretty healthy and happy here. So I'm going to show you a couple other ones that were put in quickly. This is a toyon that came later. This was actually planted after the other one, but you can see it gets a lot more sun here, so it's a little happier. This is the laurel sumac, which is doing much better right now. It started off, you can see the curly leaves, not super healthy at the beginning, but starting to recover. So it's been a process. There was layers of plantings. The first one was the toyon. I put this prostrate coyote bush also as a ground cover. And then just this past year, just this year, I planted a few more plants to sort of fill in and to provide some other interest to the garden. One of the things I really wanted to get was some flowers, something that the kids could actually, they love the flowers and it brings some color in here. So we've got this ceanothus right here. This is a Julia Phelps, does well under the tree, and this is a penstemon. This one is the scarlet bugler, and it likes sort of rocky, sunny soil. It gets a lot of sun during the day before it heads over afternoon shade. So these should do really well. We've got a sagebrush. This is not the prostrate. This one will get large and fill in this area and provide a beautiful smell to the garden. So now we're bringing in the smell. And I also, if you can kind of see on the other side, the white sage was also planted this year. And maybe I'll bring you over to the other side so you can see it. So that'll provide some smells on the other side as well. The other plant that I planted just recently is this prostrate manzanita. So this is a wayside. It does well under trees. And I really like the manzanitas for the soil support as well. We've got the smells from the laurel sumac, the sagebrush, and the actual sage over here. So I'm going to show you the white sage. It's doing really well. So this would fill in, and they get kind of gangly and leggy, but the longer it's here, the better, because the kids will want to touch it and smell it and that sort of thing. And then finally, this is a coyote mint. And this is a ground cover that should spread as well. There's not, this area is a little tricky. There's a cement slurry underneath this, probably from the electrical cables for the bungalows. So there's not a lot I can plant over here. I'm hoping maybe to get some poppies, maybe some milkweed for the insects and the caterpillars and the butterflies and the bees. So this is the center garden. So you can kind of see there's a lot of variety in here. I wanted to provide a lot of interest since this is really center of the garden. There's a lot of different sort of plants that will provide different textures, different colors, different flowers, different smells, different tastes. Well, probably won't have the kids tasting, although some of the things in here are edible. Don't want to encourage that without supervision, but they can definitely touch and smell. You can see the little flowers are getting ready to come up on the brittle bush, so that'll be nice. The kids love to pick those, and they can't hurt it. It's nice little yellow flowers that they can See, so this is the garden. You can see I've gotten a lot of logs around the border, and that helps to support keep the mulch in, really build up the soil a little bit. Eventually, the oak leaves, you can see a lot of the oak leaves down here, and the other plant leaves, they'll provide enough mulch for the soil that I won't need to bring in anything else. The best mulch in general for any plant is the leaves of the tree or the plant itself. So that tends to be the case for most plants, but it's especially true for the native plants. So we definitely want all those wonderful oak leaves as mulch rather than the brought in mulch that I was able to find. I got most of my mulch from Chip Drop, and you never know what you're going to get. So a lot of these logs they're eucalyptus, they're ficus. I got some pine this year. But you take what you can get, and you work with what you got. So hopefully this tree will continue to grow and get healthier and stronger. I'm going to show you how tall it is.